Hello everyone, I'm up here at MPK 21 rooftop and I'm here to talk about Sequioa sempervirens, also known as coast redwood, not coastal redwood, coast redwood. I took an entire class in college about just redwoods, and if you called it a coastal redwood, my professor would fail you in that class. So I'm keeping the trend going. Now these are gorgeous trees, one of my favorite trees, tallest tree in the world, one of the oldest trees in the world, and one of the fastest growing trees in the world. So here we have a beautiful stand of them here, sitting there. You can see all their new growth coming up. So when I first started here, it's about 2 years ago, these trees had just been put in and they were in line with this. So if I put you in line, look straight across, that's how tall and all of these trees were. Now you can see they've grown about 15 feet, some of them, in about 2 years, which is absolutely amazing. Now, of course, I treat them like babies and I give them all the water they need and they're pampered, but still. Now, these trees, you'll see them all over the Bay Area. Now, they get huge, over 350 feet tall. And they're one of the most interesting trees in the world because they grow for a very long time. They're not adults until they're hundreds of years old and they reach over 2,000 years old. So it's very hard to manage something like this when it's 20 generations of humans can be one specimen. Now, when humans first came here, we took a lot of these out. Their wood is some of the best in the world. It's beautiful. It's just one of the most beautiful pieces of wood. It's pest resistant, it's fire resistant, it's extremely strong in that regard. But here you can see here. And as such, it's one of the most valuable timber products in the world by far. So as poachers, and when humans first came here, they would fell these by the thousands. And as such, there's almost no old growth redwood forest left. So what I mean when I say old growth is old growth redwood forest, I mean that they've never been cut down. So when you go to the redwood forest in California, you see a lot of trees, really big, tall trees, but really they might be 100 years old, 200 tops. Started in the 1800s, 1850s is when we really started logging. But these trees live for thousands of years. So really when we go hiking, we don't see the big trees that ever existed, and we won't see them for another, maybe 1,000 years, as long as we keep our conservation efforts up. Now, the way you can tell an old growth tree, there's a few ways to do it. One, the bigger ones, of course, it's easy. So the other ways is fire. So redwoods, just like a lot of California natives, are very resistant to fire. So what you'll have is you go up to the bark and you'll have like a black tinge here up on the bark, just black tinge here. Obviously we don't have any, we're in a HIPSO, or else I'm not doing a good job, but we'll have like a black tinge on the bark here and it'll show like a fire burn. So that's very indicative of old growth forest. There's certain species like the spotted owl and the marbled murrelet that can only live in old growth forest. There's certain ways the trees grow. Mainly it's like they're nesting, like there's like this like moss and kind of just random debris just falls down and makes these little nests for them, and they'll only nest there, they'll only live there. And in the newer forest, even though you have a lot of trees and you have everything that you think they need in a human's mind, in an animal's mind, it doesn't work for them. So, redwoods have become kind of endangered. All the things that live in the old growth forest have become very endangered. So, we're doing our best here to kind of recreate a beautiful little redwood stand. We have some ferns down here, woodwardia. We got sword fern right here, a few manzanitas. These are just a few of the species that you might find. We don't have tan oaks, which are super common in redwood forest understory. But the ferns are very common. So these trees, they have one of the most interesting things that they can do in the world. So when plants pick up water, they grab it through their roots and they need to move it up to their leaves, right? So they get it down there and they get to move it all the way up there. So usually most plants and trees, what they do is they use transpiration, which is like sweating, right? So they sweat through their leaves. What happens is there becomes a lack of pressure from the laws of physics. The water will just automatically move through up to where there's no water. So all the cells are filled with water, and when there becomes a gap in the cells, now that cell gets water pushed into it, and then all the cells move up one more, and then it fills that space in the very, very top. Now you can imagine that works for 100, 200 feet. When you start getting up 300, 350, 360 feet, it stops working so well, starts taking the tree more energy. They actually can move water themselves, but they don't like to use that much energy. They just like to use the laws of physics. So what they can do is they can suck in fog through their leaves. So what they do is they can basically open up their leaves and do kind of like a gas exchange. In this case, it would be almost like a liquid exchange. And they can take the fog in. And so instead of moving it down from here all the way up, they just take it in. So they can get up to like about 30, maybe 20, 30% of their water just from taking it in from the fog. And that's why when you grow these, we have a lot in San Jose. Right now we're in Menlo Park, we get good fog cover here. But when you grow these, you need fog for them. It really helps them. They're so used to it. Without it, you can still have them survive. You got to give them a lot of water though. And you got to really, really pamper them because they're so adapted to having that fog all the time that when you don't have it, it kind of stresses them out a little bit. So, here's just an example of the leaves. These actually have a little bit of scale on them. We won't get into that. They're still healthy. You see this right here. This is all new growth right here. This whole thing. You can see that right there. That whole thing. All that. She's growing very fast. She's happy. She's got not much duff under there. One of her babies right here. So coast redwoods, one of the most iconic trees of all of California and of the Bay Area and Northern California. Go redwoods.